CS2 trade ups can be highly profitable, but they can also result in huge losses. That's why in this video, I'm breaking down 8 of the most common costly mistakes that you need to avoid. They'll make your life easier when looking for inputs, finding profitable combinations, and potentially improve expected value to maximize your returns. Now, this video is not a beginner trade up tutorial, so if you want to learn about the fundamentals of how trade ups actually work, I highly recommend watching my full guide first. The first mistake I see people making is not understanding how to maximize input floats. Let's say I find a trade up combination online that says I need 10 skins with a maximum float of 0.11. Well, if some of the inputs I find are actually 0.1 and 0.094, I get more flexibility with floats of the remaining inputs. Since it's all a matter of averages, if some of the input floats are lower, some can be higher. Plus, even if all of the skins are sitting around 0.11, try increasing the inputs to 0.111, 0.113, or 0.114, which would all still round down to 0.11, and see if it has any impact on the output floats. Because so many people are strict on which floats they are looking for online, I often find that there's a ton more possible inputs when I increase my filters by just 0.004. Before we continue, this video's sponsor, SkinSwap, is giving you a skin worth up to $50 entirely for free whenever you do your first trade and use my referral code. If you want to refresh your loadout, you can trade your skins for brand new ones in just a couple of seconds. Plus, the new Chinese markets feature lets you purchase cheap skins from Chinese sites directly, without the need for a Chinese ID or bank account. They accept deposits via crypto, MasterCard, and Visa. If you need to cash out, SkinSwap makes that simple too, with instant sell options to PayPal or crypto. On top of that, they run free daily, weekly, and monthly giveaways, with the chance to earn extra tickets simply by trading. Use my link or referral code for a 3% lifetime sales bonus and a free skin worth up to $50. Big thanks to SkinSwap for supporting the channel. As another example, if I'm wanting inputs that average 0.25, but I find one input at 0.20, I could then add one input at 0.30 and potentially still end up with a similar outcome for a lower price. Of course, given it doesn't get scaled weirdly with the float caps. Use a trade up calculator like the one provided by SkinSearch to test out float combinations before you complete it for real. The next costly mistake is not using buy orders to source inputs for your trade up. One of the biggest pain points for trade ups is finding inputs with appropriate floats at a reasonable price. Of course, you can manually browse sites, use filters, and scroll through the items yourself. But if you're trying to find lots of inputs, this can be extremely time consuming. Instead, on a site like CS Float, you can simply click on your desired item, hit create next to buy orders, go to the advanced tab and specify exactly what you want. Maximum and minimum floats, whether you want stat track, the quantity, and maximum price you're willing to pay. From that point on, any new listing that matches your criteria gets auto purchased for you, and sometimes even at a cheaper price. If you're hunting multiple items at a time, you can either set up multiple buy orders or update the rule sets here to include several skins. For example, let's say I wanted to buy classified skins from the Hydra collection. Instead of setting up 3 separate buy orders, you can click remove rule on the item and add a rule set instead. Then within the rule set, select all and add new rules for each skin. With this setup, if any classified skin from the Hydra collection in non-stat track, minware, or factory new gets listed under $20, I'd buy it, given of course that nobody else has a buy order set up with a higher purchase price. Then it's a matter of patience. It can be a bit complicated at first to understand the system, but once you know how all of the settings here work, it makes your life so much easier. Some other people suggest setting up buy orders on the Steam market directly, but I really dislike this strategy. You cannot filter for specific float ranges, so you essentially have to waste time reselling any skins that won't work for your combination and lose fees on those resales each time. The third mistake is not repeating trade ups enough times. It goes without saying, if you want to consistently make money with trade ups, you need to find combinations with a positive EV. However, just because a trade up has a 132% expected profitability, which means statistically on average, if you did this trade up infinitely many times, you'd get back an extra 32% from whatever you spent. It's obviously reliant on you repeating this trade up many times to actually converge on this average. If you have a trade up with 3 possible outcomes and only one of them profits, it doesn't mean every 1 in 3 trade ups will profit. In fact, it's very easy to go 5 or even 10 trade ups with a 1 in 3 and not hit it. Plus, the more outcomes there are, the more time times you need to repeat the trade up, as there's usually only 1 or 2 outcomes that make most of the return back. The higher the risk, the more repetitions you need. While I can't give you an exact number, and it would probably be futile anyway, given you'll either be restricted by budget or the number of inputs available for purchase, whenever you're doing trade ups with a positive EV, try to do as many as possible in order to increase your chances of hitting the averages. The next huge mistake I see all the time is not taking advantage of float caps. A prime example of this is with knives. All Doppler, Gamma Doppler, Marble Fade, and Tiger Tooth knives are only obtainable in Minware and Factory New. But because of the way the new trade up formula works, essentially scaling floats depending on their float range, inputs of all conditions will come out in Factory New. So instead of spending $500 per input buying Factory New Shantico's Fires, you can just chuck in Battle Scarred or well-worn inputs sitting around the $100 mark, and if you hit any of the aforementioned finishes, it will still come out in Factory New. The same logic applies to popular play skins like the M4 Fade and M4 Blue Phosphor, which are float capped at 0.08. Of course, it is handy to know the float caps of your potential trade up outputs, but you can also take advantage of the float caps of your input skins too. Skins with a high minimum float like the Mac 10 Sakaku for example, which only starts at 0.21, can scale highly favorably, meaning if you're able to find a field tested Sakaku with a 0.24 float or lower, it acts like a 0.05 float Factory New input, but potentially at a fraction of the price. And a 0.22 float Sakaku scales to 0.017. If you want to check float caps yourself and how they scale, I once again like to use Skin Search's Trade Up Calculator. Simply search the item and hover over this bar to see its full float range. Plus, if you add it to the contract and adjust the float, you'll see how it scales just beneath. Understanding float caps can completely change how profitable certain trade ups are. The fifth mistake is relying entirely on publicly shared combinations. There are a number of places you can find profitable trade ups online, whether it be sites like TradeUp Lab or TradeUp Spy, Reddit forums, Discord servers, or YouTube videos. The problem is, once these contracts get published, everyone rushes to buy up the exact same inputs as you, pushing prices up, and suddenly a profitable combination becomes unprofitable. These contracts can be a great starting point, but you can get a real edge by slightly modifying combinations, whether that be swapping out skins from the same collection that may not have seen the same price increase, using different float combinations, or swapping out one collection while keeping the same fillers. Unless you're the first one to see it, copying a shared trade up exactly as is unlikely to work out. I find there's often opportunity in recently added or discontinued collections, although these might be susceptible to price fluctuations, which is the next point I want to discuss. Market volatility. Especially over the last 6 months, we've seen tons of CS items have their prices spike. Sometimes this is because of a game update or increased popularity, but often it's outright market manipulation where an individual or group of players tries to buy up as much supply as possible to drive up prices, create fake hype, and then dump them for a profit. Before you commit to a trade up, check the historical price charts of both the inputs and outputs. If you're buying at peak hype, you're stacking the odds against yourself. Of course, there can be opportunity here, as it often takes a little while for price changes to trickle down to tiers below, but be conscious you're taking on a risk if attempting trade ups for highly volatile skins. Number 7 is ignoring liquidity. Some trade ups look incredible on paper, but can result in you holding skins that don't sell very often, and may require significant price cuts to actually move. If you end up having to sell at a discount, you might lose your margin entirely. As a random example, StatTrack knives in poor conditions like well-worn or battle-scarred might only sell once every month or two, or items with extremely low supply can mean existing listings do not reflect what people are actually willing to pay. You can use a site like Price Empire to check the liquidity rating of a skin. The closer to 100, the better. But at a minimum, go onto whichever site you plan to sell on and check the sales history of your potential outputs to gauge the realistic time frame and actual recent sales prices. The final mistake, which can easily be forgotten about, is not taking fees into account. This is a silent killer. If you have a trade up with an expected profitability of 110%, but you're paying a 3.5% deposit or credit card fee when buying inputs and a 5% sales or withdrawal fee, your margin is gone. Alternatively, if you're buying and selling items entirely on the Steam community market, that 13% Steam fee is going to eat away massively at your potential profits. Always calculate EV after fees. If you don't, your numbers can be incredibly misleading. If you want to learn about the exact strategies I use to profit during CS2 market crashes, be sure to check out this video next. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, and take care of yourselves.